Good morning, folks. It's Vince the Evil DM back with another video for Railguns and Dragons. This time I'm going to be answering an email from my blog from Tom Smith. I believe that was his name. If I got it wrong, I apologize. He was asking about what Palladium Fantasy and Palladium in general, why they don't really have, well, a monster manual, so to speak. Now, they did have monsters and animals for fantasy, and they do have the Beastery #1 for Rifts. So they have some general things in there for you to explore and use as a basis for creatures and monsters that you want. But it is not like how D&D is done, and I know a lot of people were asking me, what about my average goblin? What about my average skeleton? And you could find average skeletons when you look under one of the... when you summon the skeleton in the book in the fantasy, there's some actual stats there for summoning skeletons to give you the average stats of skeletons. So if you want that type of undead, you can get it there. But as far as orcs, goblins, kobolds, things like that, your average creature like D&D has a monster manual with their little stats, and you have a little stat block. It's ready to go in your campaign. Palladium wants you to make it up on your own. And I know a lot of people don't like that because it causes them to have to actually put more work into the campaign. And as a GM, you will have enough to worry about. So what I've done over the years, and excuse me here while I drink some coffee, is that I generally like to get my stuff down on paper and do little short blocks like this. So you have your orcs, you put down the AR, the SDC, and the hit points. Then you put down, how much to strike, how much to parry, how much to dodge, and how much damage they do. That's basically all you need. And sometimes I write down champions, which are a little bit more powerful of the group. They're kind of like bigger or a little bit more stronger than the average orc, for example. And that's all you really need for monsters or NPCs is what they're going to do, use the strike. You don't even have to put that down. You could just say a sword. Who cares? How much their strike is, how much their parry is, how much damage, how much their dodge is. And those numbers come with time and kind of looking around and looking at other people in the game. And I try to base it off the group. If my group has a really big strikes and parries and stuff like that, then I'm going to raise the creatures just a little bit so they might be able to hit the players in the group. Larger creatures like beasts and stuff like that may have, +5, +10, something that could hit actually in the group. You have to have monsters have a fair advantage as well. Otherwise, it's going to be miss, 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 miss. Now, I wish that Palladium would just give you just some general stats. Here, orc, boom. Something for you to write off, something for you to work off of, but it is better to customize it yourself. These I wrote quickly up before I did this video. I have stats on my desk when I play Palladium Fantasy of all general creatures that I want to use and for different situations. So if I want a weak goblin, I got a weak goblin. He's only got a +1. He's got a couple hit points, things like that. I got a powerful goblin. He's got +5, +6 to his strike or +6 to his parry. I have different categories in my book for creatures for different situations so that when the game goes on, I can judge it based on what's going on and, have a fun campaign. Now, you don't, like I said, you don't want it so the NPCs and the PCs are constantly missing each other. It's no fun. You want to give them a little bit of a challenge so that when they do go, they can, they can actually, attack and dodge. And it's a fun and memorable experience. Now, if it's just a one-sided thing, then it's just no fun to players. Or even for you as the GM, when you're trying to play and at least give them a challenge, and every time you go to hit, it's just miss, miss, miss. So, you have to make it a little challenging. You have to actually make up your own stats and base it off other things. Just look at your group, see what their averages are, and then try to make it a little bit below or a little bit above, depending on how hard you want to make the encounter when you're setting it up. That's generally how I do it, as far as health and hit points, SDC and armor and stuff like that. And then give them a nice reward at the end if it's really, really hard. Give them a bunch of treasure and, items. So they feel that the hard encounters are worthwhile to them. That's generally how it works in almost any fantasy game or any game whatsoever. We try to balance it somewhat to what the group is. Now, as we all know, the world is not set up balanced in any game. There's no level appropriate monsters or level appropriate zones. This is not an MMO. And sometimes you do have to run. So you have to make it so that players know that their characters need to run at certain points when they're getting overpowered. Just let them know this, that not everything's going to be level appropriate. I hate the fact that 5e, 4e, and 3e started with that challenge rating stuff. I understand the purpose of it, and it was supposed to help new GMs be able to place the proper monsters in the situation they needed, but it started to become monsters have to be fair guideline bullcrap, and that's what kind of ruined it for older players who did AD&D and played in fantasy and things like that, because players were expecting to run in and always either win or slightly win with some wounds, and not be able to run away like in the olden days of AD&D, playing in fantasy. When there's a giant monster there, you're going to lose, you're going to run, or try a different tactic of not actually attacking it straight on. The one thing, again, that I like about Palladium Fantasy, or Palladium in general, is that it rewards you for thinking other than just bashing with your sword. So, hopefully I've answered your question here and given you a little bit of an idea how things work. As far as, before anybody asks, what type of treasure and stuff to put on them, put whatever you want. If they're lowly orcs running around roaming the countryside, they're probably not going to have much on. They may have a few gold pieces, maybe that they robbed from somebody or they stole from somewhere. If it's a big bad in a lair, obviously he's going to have some type of treasure in there, maybe some gold, some magical weapons, things like that. So just judge it based on the situation and what you have at hand. Now, if you have any further questions, please send it to your questions at theevildm.com or askthedm at theevildm.com. You can also support this channel by hitting the thanks button below and just giving a tip donation or supporting me monthly through Ko-Fi. The link is in the description below. With that said, keep it original, keep it old school. Good night, everybody.